Hey there, YouTube. It's Wrestling Optimus. It may be Labor Day, but that won't stop me from recapping another jam-packed episode of Monday Night Raw on USA. First, as always, if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography on Instagram at Wrestling Optimus. Now, for a review and some fantasy booking, let's take it over to the action figures. Raw starts with Randy Orton cutting a promo, still claiming that he's entitled to a shot at the championship. Apparently, every title must be defended at Clash of Champions, and since Randy is confident the WWE Championship can't be defended because he punted Drew McIntyre in the head 3 times last week, he tells Drew to simply hand it over so he can defend it.
And here comes the ambulance.
We hear sirens and Drew pulls into the Thunderdome, driving an ambulance. Of course, I still haven't bought the WWE Wreckin' Ambulance and I'm regretting it even more. But Murphy's Law says the moment I do, WWE will never use an ambulance again and it will immediately go on sale. McIntyre rushes the ring and Claymore kicks Randy in the face. The Hurt Business beats up a janitor backstage after accusing him of insulting Shelton's mama. Not sure what the point of this was. Adam Pearce confronts Drew about not being medically cleared to be here tonight. He's got enough problems with retribution running around and doesn't need Drew getting injured any further on his watch. McIntyre concedes, says he did what he came to do, and seems to leave. Apollo Crews, Ricochet, and Cedric Alexander are taking on the Hurt Business in 6-man tag action. The heels attack Cedric on the ramp during his entrance. It's a pretty standard match until out of nowhere, Cedric attacks Ricochet. He gets in the ring and delivers a lumbar check to Apollo. Heel turn confirmed. Hurt Business wins. I'd just like to say I found it offensive that Cedric Alexander wore a Black Lives Matter armband while turning heel on 2 fellow black wrestlers. And that's all I'll say about that. The mood immediately changes as the fun-loving Street Profits come out to their usual shower of solo cups. Andrade and Angel Garza come out separately, and El Idolo is clearly upset with the Lethal Lothario about getting abandoned last week during that attack by Retribution. Garza starts the match claiming he's got this, but then tags in Andrade. While he keeps fighting, Angel begins to argue with Zelina Vega on the outside, and then slowly starts to leave. The Street Profits take advantage, hit the big splash, and get the win. Garza laughs from the top of the ramp. Cesaro's music plays and it looks like the SmackDown Tag Team Champions are here. Cesaro says he respects how long the Street Profits have been Raw Tag Team Champs, but when people think of the Street Profits, they don't think of wrestling champions. Shinsuke chimes in saying people think of basketball, mini-golf, and playing with ninjas. They challenge the Profits to a Champions vs. Champions match next week because Shinsuke starts to say they want the smoke, but Angelo stops him and claims copyright infringement. Montez calls their team the Bar 2.0 and says Cesaro has had so many partners he might want to get an STD check. Oh! The Street Profits accept. We see R-Truth at a restaurant talking to an empty chair and telling it about all the times he's lost the 24/7 championship. A waiter brings over a dessert cart and a ninja jumps out. In walks Akira Tozawa with the referee, and in a panic, Truth throws his belt to his invisible friend, Lil Jimmy, but of course it just falls to the ground. Tozawa picks it up, but Truth runs him over with the dessert cart and grabs it back. He screams at the manager, "You can't get on diners, drive-ins, and dives serving ninjas!" and runs off. I love Truth. Peyton Royce comes out for the first time by herself with brand new generic music. She's taking on Billie Kay, whose new music is much more similar to the Iconics. You can feel the trepidation as the two lock up to start the match. It quickly dissolves into a shouting match though, as they each blame each other for the loss that broke them up. Now they're fighting for real. Predictably, they know each other's moves, and we see plenty of counters. In the end, Peyton Royce, the rumored future recipient of a Vince McMahon-sanctioned push, picks up the victory. In a show of sportsmanship, she helps her friend to her feet after the match. I guess their friendship is still intact. That's nice. As the Mysterio family arrives to the building, we see Murphy stalking them in the background. They come to the ring for an interview. Ray says he can't wait to finally get closure with Seth Rollins. Before Dominic can say his piece, Murphy interrupts on the Jumbotron. He blames Dominic for turning Seth against him and says it's because of Dominic that the Monday Night Messiah wants nothing to do with him. So he's upping the ante tonight and challenges Dominic to a street fight. Dominic accepts and basically says if Murphy lays a hand on his family, he'll murder him. That escalated quickly. Adam Pearce informs Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax that because of Nia's big mouth, they'll both be having handicap matches against the Riot Squad later tonight. Next week, we'll see Mickie James take on Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. But tonight, they're teaming up to take on Natalya and Lana. Mickie makes an interesting tag by slapping Asuka on the ass after a hip attack. So later on, Asuka does the same as Mickie heads to the top rope. An Asuka lock to Lana wins the match, but the babyfaces bicker afterwards. Cedric Alexander is the special guest in the VIP lounge. Shelton is extremely skeptical about why Cedric had such a sudden change of heart, so MVP asks him to explain. Alexander says it was impossible to be tag partners with a man who calls himself the one and only, and he's tired of taking beatings week in and week out for someone else's championship opportunities. They're suddenly interrupted by the Viking Raiders, Apollo, and Ricochet, who rush the ring. Chaos ensues, and the babyfaces stand tall. After a commercial, we get an 8-man tag match. I know it's staged and pumped in, but Cedric has serious heat with the Thunderdome audience every time he steps in the ring. It's so nice to hear that instant crowd feedback again, even if it's fake. Ricochet runs wild on the hot tag. When he goes for a pin on MVP, he comes face to face with his former partner Cedric. They square off in some hard-hitting action. We get the classic multi-man sequence where everyone does their finisher. Ivar dives on a group of bodies outside and seems to land awkwardly. He throws up his own X symbol. Oh no, shades of Matt Hardy from Saturday. The camera moves back to the ring where it appears the ref receives a communication on his earpiece because Ricochet kicks out at 2, but he calls for the bell. The Hurt Business joins Cedric in the ring before we finally cut to the Viking Raiders, and this looks serious. It's confirmed on social media afterwards that Ivar is in fact injured. After Aleister Black kicked Kevin Owens in the face during the KO show, and then attacked Owens before his match with Randy Orton last week, tonight they're going to be taking each other on in a Raw Underground grudge match. As he enters, KO has the line of the night. In referring to Shane, quote, "I wish I could say it was nice to see you, but you're still a jackass." Up next is the rematch between Keith Lee and Randy Orton. It's a typical slow Randy Orton match, except he keeps leaving the ring to avoid a fight. So Keith Lee pulls him back in by force. At the end, Lee goes for the Spirit Bomb, but Randy turns it into an RKO. However, he's immediately hit with another Claymore kick out of nowhere, causing the disqualification. Drew whispers into Randy's ear, "I want you to see me in your nightmares." We cut to Raw Underground where Aleister Black is pummeling some jobber. Despite escorting him inside like 30 minutes ago, Shane says we're still waiting on KO. Finally, he arrives and the fight is on. They brawl to the floor and Shane says, "We'll be right back." But we don't come right back to Raw Underground, we come back to Adam Pearce apologizing to Randy Orton for Drew McIntyre. Pearce gives his word that Drew is gone, but his word means nothing to Orton. We get the first of 2 women's handicap matches. Shayna's style looks so much like a shoot. She doesn't do any of the usual tropes that take away from your suspension of disbelief, like the stuff a trained fighter would never do but wrestlers do all the time. For example, instead of ducking under Ruby's leapfrog, she stops and slams her to the mat. It's great. And yet, Nia antagonizes Shayna from ringside the entire match, acting not impressed by anything she sees. That's enough to distract Baszler long enough for Liv to get the surprise roll-up and the win. We finally come back to Raw Underground with Aleister Black and Kevin Owens. Am I to believe that these two have been fighting this entire time? Owens slams Black into a wall, and he falls unconscious to the ground. We've seen Raw Underground matches stopped for far less, but they keep going. Then, they start attacking jobbers for reasons. Now it's Nia's turn to take on the Riot Squad. She's dominant throughout until the lights start to flicker. Liv utilizes the distraction to hit her finisher, but after the ref counts 2, the Thunderdome goes black, and we never hear the 3. The word retribution comes across the screen. A distorted voice says, The Thunderdome is only a facade. Behind this mountain of screens is the same WWE as before. We see some hooded figures as the voice explains that WWE is the same company that discarded them into an unknown world. While WWE grew, they were left to feed on scraps. Another voice that's clearly Dominik Dijakovic says they want to lay waste to the entire WWE universe. They are Retribution. This is the first time Retribution has given us their motives, and I'm very confused. Are they supposed to be playing off the people who were released back in April? If so, that's in poor taste. The dialogue was cheesy, and in my opinion, this was a complete failure of an introduction for the group. In a seemingly stunning display of endurance, Aleister Black and Kevin Owens are still fighting in Raw Underground. At one point, Owens throws Aleister off the mat and into Dabba-Kato. He takes offense and joins in the fight, slamming Kevin with a spinebuster, then he chokeslams Aleister for good measure, and Shane calls everything off. Backstage, Charlie tries to get a word from Randy, but yet again he's attacked by Drew McIntyre. Drew crushes Orton's face into the post of the backstage ring, then throws him in and sets him up for another Claymore. He nails the Viper a third time. When we come back from commercial, Randy is being loaded into an ambulance much like Drew was the week before. Our main event is Dominik Mysterio vs. Don't Call Him Buddy Murphy. The entire Mysterio family, including Rey's daughter Aaliyah, come out carrying kendo sticks. Things quickly spill to the outside. Dominik climbs on top of the first row of video screens and does a flying cross body onto Murphy. They brawl up and down the ramp, and Murphy gets a chair involved. He ties Dominik up in the ropes and grabs a kendo stick, but gets kicked in the face and drops it. Rey steals it away, so Murphy sets up a table as the Mysterio women untie Dominik from the ropes. Once free, he does an amazing sliding sunset flip to drive Murphy into the table. Dom brings him back into the ring and hits a frog splash, but it only gets a 2. Rey helps Dominik tie Murphy up in the ropes this time. They take turns beating him with kendo sticks as Rey screams at Seth into the camera. Then they invite Rey's wife and daughter into the ring to join in the fun. It's a family affair. Murphy quits, and your winner is Dominik Mysterio. Afterwards, the referee helps free Murphy, but the entire Mysterio family continues wailing on him as we fade to black. Very interesting ending. Since no one watches these videos anyway, I'm just going to be completely open and honest into the void. I'm going through some personal stuff right now that significantly impacted my ability to concentrate on and enjoy this episode. So I apologize for the lack of detail and fantasy booking, along with the overall poor quality of this video. As a matter of principle, I still wanted to get it out there though. I don't really feel like I can give an accurate assessment for this episode. Frankly, it seemed like it was utter crap, but I'll have to see if more neutral parties agree with me. In the meantime, let's just say it was alright and move on. Well, that'll do it for this week's SmackDown. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'll be back tomorrow with my AEW Dark reactions from the garage pool, so be sure to check back then. As always, if you found me and enjoyed the video, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash that like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. Again, you can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.